I'm fine with people deciding individually that they don't want to identify as female on the internet, in the same way I'm fine with people deciding not to wear a short skirt if they feel afraid or uncomfortable. But no one should tell you to do that, and imply that if you don't comply, you are somehow the one at fault, says journalist Helen Lewis, who was among the first to speak out against online misogyny in the mainstream press. She says that such advice translates to duck so that the shits abuse someone else. I'm 17 and I'm not allowed on the internet, and it feels like being gagged and blindfolded. During the 9 months I spent in a women's ward for the mentally interesting, the internet was deemed a bad influence. Possibly the worst, on young girls trying to become healthy, well-behaved women. All that porn, all that trash, all those poisonous pictures of very thin models shared on pro-ana sites, where we had encouraged each other to starve down to ecstatic skeletons before we were hospitalized. The internet was bad for us. It could only ever be bad for us. So were books and magazines, although television and clothing catalogues were allowed. We needed to be contained. That was the word they used, contained. This was precisely the sort of thinking that I tried to get away from by getting sick in the first place. But I wanted to be given a clean certificate of health so I could get out of that terrible place and get on with my life. And so I did what girls have always done in desperate situations in order to survive when the body is contained. I wrote. I began to write compulsively in paper notebooks because computers and smartphones were forbidden. I wrote late into the night and just for myself in a messy, spidery hand that I never showed to anyone because it was purely mine. Years later, when I saw the film Girl Interrupted, Susanna Kayson's account of being treated in a women's mental hospital in the 1960s, I was startled that the protagonist does the same, writing frantically in longhand, like the pen is a shovel, digging her out of the shallow grave of social mores where she's been buried alive. I wonder if this is why many women write, because it allows us to breathe. Writing was always freedom for me. I'm aware that that's the sort of observation that belongs in my personal journal, which is why I kept them. By the time I was certified sane enough to walk the streets, I had filled 20 volumes, and I continued to do so in the mad years that followed, years of homeless, precarious teenage dicking about and hanging on to a college place with my fingernails whilst I wrote. Learned to be human, wrote. Learned to take care of myself, and wrote. And then, sometime after my 19th birthday, I discovered LiveJournal, and everything changed. It was my housemate, who I'd met in a cabaret audition, who turned me onto it. Specifically, she told me that this vast website full of teenage fan fiction, nerdy subgroups, and threaded comments of excitable strangers discussing politics and philosophy and the best place to get coffee in cities we'd never even heard of, was where she spent most of her time. And that if I ever wanted to talk to her, despite her being in the next room, I was going to have to join and post. And so I picked a username out of a hat, this being the year before Facebook, when one's online handle was still a pseudonymous statement of identity, and started writing little blog entries. And that's how I learned to write in public, in a way far more immediate, far more enticing and personal than the blank limited space of the school newspaper could ever be. I write to survive. But I learned how to be a writer online, and so did millions of other women all over the world. And not just how to write, but how to speak and listen, how to understand my own experience and raise my voice. I educated myself online, grew up online, and on blogs.